So this is the first in the mo'olelo. What I've been doing so far is mo'oiki, which are five-minute guided meditations. But this is the talk story portion of the channel, and I get into things much in longer and more in detail. And I don't end with a meditation. It's just sort of information, so to speak, about different things. And in Hawaii, we just call it talk story. But mo'olelo also means history, mythology, talk story. So I want to talk about what we've done so far. Uh, so now that you've been engaging, hopefully every day, in the meditation practices, the 5-minute meditation practices, and I have deliberately not been doing it every week because I think that when you first start, you really have to get what is the basic in a sort of real physical kind of a way. Um, and then I thought I would explain what we're doing in the Mo'olelo section, talk stories. So we've been engaging with different ideas like breathing. Now, some people will say there is no real right way to breathe, but actually, in meditation, you really need to breathe a relaxed breath that comes from your belly, comes from your diaphragm deep. Uh, the short breath is good for athletes and for women in labor. That's, you need to do that. But if you're doing it all the time, that's anxiety breathing. So we don't want to do that all the time. The second thing is to take yourself seriously. So often we have the tendency to do what will please other people, starting with our parents and our teachers. And it goes on and on and on until you don't even realize, you've been through half your life, you don't even know who you are. So when you begin to make a sacred space, the whole idea is to honor yourself, to know what it is that you find sacred, to know that you are also sacred, and to begin to recognize and take seriously your boundaries. The third one is listening to your body, because that's where we stuff all of our toxic emotions. That's where we, try to control our libido. It is the brunt force. It's what takes all of the hits in this physical world is the body. So we need to develop a relationship with our body and to understand where our body is, what it feels like, what it's trying to tell us. And also when it's stressed. So how to listen to the body, how to recognize that the body is stressed. So when you go into meditation, before you go into meditation, you should be just noticing your body and, wow, just scanning your body to see where there's any tension. Different people hold tension in different ways. I hold tension everywhere, actually. I hold tension in my jaw, on my forehead. I got a little line happening there in my head. I also find that I hold a lot of tension in my intestines, believe it or not. So that's what you do when you're doing your body meditation. You're trying to, what you're doing is you're recognizing the different parts of your body, and you recognize when it tenses. Even within the meditation, you could already relax, and then in the meditation, your body just naturally goes to its natural position, which is stress, and you just relax and you soften it again. You have to know how to sit erect, but not rigidly. Some people like put their back up like that. No, everything is relaxed. Okay. Um, the fourth thing that we've learned is to observe your mind and create discipline in the brain through focus and non-judgment. And this is really great because so often when we're in the flow of an emotion, we feel like we can't separate, this is who I am at this moment, and we can't separate ourselves from it. But when you are in meditation and you begin to use the observer, like to observe how you're feeling, to observe if you have a judgment, and to not judge that you're having a judgment, just to notice that you're having it, you slowly bring yourself to a more objective framework, which is very important for people who get lost in their emotions, which is easy to do if you've been traumatized, which I think on one level or another, most people have been traumatized, living in the system as it is. Um, some people have been more traumatized than others, and the ones that have been severely traumatized, it's meditation will help to mitigate it and to help with the healing of that. Not in a vacuum, naturally. You need other things to help you heal, but meditation is a really, really good tool for that. And you also notice how you feel, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, and how you can tell what you do mentally is by observing and noticing it. Because if you have a wandering thought and you stop it, you try to change that, you can recognize that you do have a kind of a Marshall-like brain that is demanding you to do things perfectly, or it criticizes you or something. But it's good to be on the outside of it and just notice it. And then you can really be more free to make a decision whether you want to continue that practice or not. For me, that was a really important thing, because my survival instincts were really located very much in my brain. Other people, it's their body. They become great athletes or great dancers. They hide everything in that. Mine was my brain. And so I needed to learn how to relax that brain. And the brain is very tricky. It's very tricky. You can think you're having a psychic moment and it's your brain making up a story. So, really good to get a grip on your brain. So now that we've done that, we can move deeper into the practice of meditation. And I think it's important to know, what is meditation? There are many forms of meditation. You're going to hear me talk about things like vipassana. I often mispronounce that and say Visipana, but it's not, it's Vipassana. And there's the Zen meditation, there's Buddhist meditation, which is Zen meditation. There's the Hindu and Vedic practices, which historically we can date to 1500 BC. And that means it's 3,500 years old. That was the formal practice that was introduced in India. However, saying that, when you think about indigenous people, and my point of reference is Hawaiian, I know that the Hawaiians used to dance, the certain of the hula practitioners who were allowed to, they would channel spirits through their dance. They would allow the spirit to come into them. They would move themselves aside, and the spirit would enjoy dancing through their body. In order for them to be able to do that, to channel a spirit to dance through their body, they had to be able to move their own personal consciousness aside. That's a form of meditation. So in my estimation, meditation has been practiced for longer than 3,500 years. But for historic reasons, we can pinpoint it to the Hindu and Vedic practices. Let's see, how many forms of meditation are there? Well, I've just gone over that. Vipassana, there's mindfulness. Mindfulness comes from Vipassana. Someone named John Kabat-Zinn, who was out of the University of Boston, I think, in Massachusetts, he kind of put it together in like a scientific way. He was in the health doctor, he was in the doctoral program. And they began to put these things together. And so it's called mindfulness in the West, and it's been adopted. Many people use mindfulness right now. And because of a lot of scientific data that we now have, it actually, the data didn't start coming until the 90s, probably the late 90s, because of neuroscience, the technology used to measure the brain and the brain impulses, but also to be able to see inside the brain. You, we found through that science that meditation actually does have an effect physically upon a practitioner. I'll get into that later. So, how many forms? There's Vipassana, mindfulness, Zen, mantra meditations, mudra, and chakra practices. There are visualizations, guided meditations, which we do here, sound baths. There's the empty mind, the present moment, which is sort of, I get the present moment from Eckhart Tolle, but I believe that present moment meditation is very much like Vipassana and the mindfulness meditation of John Kabat-Zinn. There's the loving kindness meditation, the thankfulness gratitude meditation. Then there's yoga, tai chi, qigong. All are forms of meditation. Furthermore, because the science world has moved meditation into legitimacy via neurosciences, the psychological professionals have introduced meditation into cognitive therapy. They actually use it in psychology right now through adapting the practices. So we are beginning to see the importance of our mindset from right now. So right now in the world is in chaos. Maybe the world is always in chaos, but it's really in chaos now. Why? There's a big change going on. And I think you almost have to be, blind not to see it. And in this moment of upheaval and chaos, I can't tell you, there's just been, hundreds of meditation videos popping up here and there. Although I've been doing this practice for a very long time, I never felt like I wanted to do it online. But chaos is a really great change agent. And because it's in those moments that where the collective wants to go can take that moment and change it. At this moment, we not only have the astrology of the stars, different things happening, like just recently there was a comet that appeared and it hasn't been seen in 6,800 years. That's almost 7,000 years between sightings of this comet. There's different aspects in the sky like Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, all together. And then there's like a whole bunch of eclipses in Capricorn and Cancer. And there's just, more eclipses than normal. And it's just been a 2-year period. And all of this has been portending some kind of change. Now, if it wasn't really something significant, you wouldn't see this change. But actually, they've been predicting it, and look at this. All kinds of things are falling apart right now. The significance, I won't go into the astrology, although I could, because I do practice astrology too. The significance of, Pluto and Saturn is the fall of the old, the things that are not working anymore, that will be revealed so that we can see, hey, this isn't working. And the status quo, the elite, in other words, and the laziness there or the corruption there gets exposed. And then the people have to make a decision if this is the way they want to go or not. Is the decision just for the people? I don't know, because the other question that we have to ask is what we see everything that there is. Now, I've mentioned the stars and I've mentioned energy and the fact that we're all energy, and that's quantum physics has proven it. Like on the very smallest subatomic particle, you can see something that's matter, but then it just changes into energy. And when they look at it, they can only look at one or the other. If they want to see the matter, they can, but they have to look in a certain way, looking for the matter. And if they want to see the energy, they can see it, but then they have to look in another way at this other thing. So that's one of their first principles, I think, is that it depends on the observer. Reality depends on the observer. Where we place our focus is what will be real for us, which is why you don't want to stay in a traumatized mind thinking the world is, poop. You want to be focused more on the possibility of goodness, not on what you see that maybe you've been traumatized by. That's why forgiveness is so great. It's forgiveness, therapy, mindfulness. It all helps you to get out of fearful mind, so that you can slowly move yourself back into a more positive, more effective kind of life, more happy, more fulfilling kind of a life. And that also then contributes to the collective consciousness. And it elevates us, it evolves us. And that's what we're doing right now. We're evolving in a big way. So thanks to neuroscience, thanks to quantum physics, we now have been able to prove through science that, first of all, that the reality of the material world, which I always refer to as 3D, it's real, but it is a subcategory under a larger umbrella, which is quantum physics. So material reality is one reality, but quantum physics, the 3D reality is defined and described by classical physics. That's the Newtonian Cartesian model, okay? And it works for 3D. But over that is the quantum physics, which deals with energy. And it is the umbrella under which classical physics sits. So the description of reality, according to the newer science, and I don't know how new it is. They started to see it in the late 1800s, but they actually formed it and formed their first principles in 1927. Einstein, Bohm, just a bunch of guys, a bunch of really smart guys. Matter, and there is energy, but all matter is energy. It's not the other way around. Not all energy shows up as matter. In this particular description of the natural world, which is a quantum description, you can see, since we're all energy, that everything is interconnected. Everything. Now, you might say, well, I'm not connected to Joe Blow down the street, but you can't use the thing just because you look separate. It's sort of like the same thing as like you think you know yourself, but you don't even know your body. You don't even realize that your thoughts aren't your own, you know? So it's, it, it's important, I think, to recognize that we are energy beings, because that sort of undoes the whole race discussion. Um, I'm different from them. Yeah, there are different cultures, there are different ways of looking at things, but that doesn't mean we're not connected energetically. Um, from this point of view of energy, we can explain such phenomenon as distance healing, remote viewing, hands-on healing, intuition, clairvoyance, clairaudience, prophecy, ESP, and the like. What does that have to do with meditation? Well, one of the articles that I was reading about meditation said that it's really good. Everybody likes it except a small little few people, because it takes them to experiences that are the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul, the first time I ever heard of that was when I was reading Jung, and he had experienced it when he wanted to go, he kind of disagreed with Freud. Now, Freud was the guy that really, boy, he put psychology on the map. He legitimized it, and everybody thought he was the king. And he was really good at a lot of things, but when I read him, I often think, of everything boils down to a sexual fantasy that you're having. You have a dream of a train, sexual fantasy. And Jung was saying that he felt the opposite. He felt a nervous breakdown happened when you did not allow your unconscious, your subconscious to speak to you, when you did not allow it to uh, connect, to be acknowledged, uh, to work things out. And that led to forces that were even larger than your own personal psyche. Um, it led to the energy that was around us, all of this thing. Now, Jung, I think his father was a Presbyterian priest, so, and he got into mythology before he was 12, so he really understood there was something else going on. And so that's what his work was about um, dealing with the traumas of the personal psyche, but then also utilizing the subconscious and connection to a greater reality. So, I mean, he even wrote with Linus Pauly, I think he wrote something, they both wrote something together on psychology and energy healing. So that's why I think when you meditate, I want to sort of put this out here because many people are drawn to meditation because they hear that it calms you, that it's good for reduction of stress, and it very much is. And sometimes, if that's the reason that brings you here, well, this is a really good reason. But when people, when people go to the dark night of the soul, which is where Jung went to, when he threw his theory out there and he was soundly smacked by Freud. Freud was very upset with this. Everyone, because Freud was the god and Jung was the young guy coming up after him, although Freud thought Jung was brilliant, when Jung said he wanted to bring the whole psyche and the invisible world into it, the spiritual thing, Jung turned on him. He was very angry about it. And he turned on him, and everyone in that world turned on Jung. And Jung went through what is known as the dark night of the soul. And that's, I think, what a lot of people go through when they have chaos like this, which is why they're turning to meditation. Um, but some of them go through it when they do meditate. Why would that happen? Um, for myself, I was, um, it was suggested to me to meditate by a therapist. She didn't teach me how, she just told me, sit quietly and do it. Uh, so, uh, after not listening to her for years, I find she suggested it again, and I finally tried it. And my first experience was I sat for what I thought was about 5 minutes, and I came out. I was groggy. I was sleepy. I was like, oh, this didn't make me feel better. And I looked at my watch, and 3 hours had gone by. And that was happening on the regular. So when I went to see her again, I complained about it, and she explained the reasons for it. And so I was even more interested in it. But further to that, what happened because of my beginning to meditate became, uh, there were things that happened that I could not explain. And, like, for example, within 7 months, I was out of a 7-year relationship that, it was, challenging. It was a really challenging relationship. And I didn't feel I could leave it, for reasons, I just felt bad. I didn't feel I could leave it. And what happened was I knew I had to leave it because it was pretty dysfunctional. And within 7 months, as I was starting to meditate, the person broke up with me, which is what it was great. And so that was it. And later he said to me that he didn't know what came over him. He just didn't know, that he just mentioned it as a ploy, get out. But he never thought that I would get out. So that was kind of interesting. And the second thing is, so I was living in LA at the time. I moved back to Hawaii for a little bit. And I suddenly started healing people. And I began having very prophetic dreams, and very specific kinds of dreams, where, okay, here's one, just one, I'll give you one. I dreamed I was being initiated. And in the initiation, I was on a cliff with 2 Native Americans. One was pounding a drum. He was younger, but probably middle-aged. And the other one was an elder, very silver hair. And he was chanting. And there was a fire, and they put a green snake around my head. It was so real in the dream that I literally, I felt the weight of the snake that he had coiled around my head. And the snake kept trying to bite my head. And it wasn't the elder, it was the middle-aged guy. He was holding the snake back because the snake was really trying to bite me. And he finally calmed the snake down, and it was around my head, and then it went like this. And I had the snake, and the elder motioned me to the cliff and told me to walk off the cliff. And I was pretty scared. I didn't want to do that. And he just held my hand. He walked, and we walked off the cliff. And we walked, and a portal opened, and we ended up in a place where I only saw the, well, I won't go into the rest of it. But anyway, so there was a green snake. And I saw a friend. And when I saw the friend, we were in a different time. And in this day and age, she was having problems with her throat. In the dream, she was coming to me. We were in a crypt. And she was like really scared because we had been buried with the pharaoh. And behind her was a sorcerer. And I tried to stop, and he put a hex on her, and her voice just dropped in the dream, and she couldn't talk. So that was just part of the dream. It went on, but I won't go further. When I woke up, by the time I woke up, I got a call from that girl. And she said, I saw you in a dream last night. We were in this very darkened place. She was, long story short, we were in the same place in the dream. And she said, something hit me from behind. I don't know what it was. And I told her what it was. And she, another long story short, she got her voice back. She used to talk really like that all the time. She had a real hard time talking. And after that dream, her voice completely changed. And she got her voice back. So strange things like that were happening. But dreaming of the green snake over and over and over. And it took me to Sedona, where I was shown a place. So I went to that place. I hiked up there and I found it. And I was sitting there trying to figure out what I was there for. There was an altar that somebody had built. So I sat there on the bench that, on a cliff with this altar. And the friend that I went with, suddenly, we were looking everywhere, and suddenly the person goes, oh my God, don't move, don't move. And coming out of the altar was a green snake. It was a rattlesnake. And it curled, and it was pointing. I was sitting on the bench, and it was pointing right at my head, like this far from my head. And his tongue was out even. And he was like, oh my God. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I gotta find something to whack it away. He was freaking out. And I said, wait. So I was waiting there for a while, and I said, wait, I think I can't. So I said, wait a second. He goes, don't move, don't move. I said, no, wait. And I finally slowly turned around, and there was the snake, but he was frozen in that position. He wasn't even moving anymore. So those kind of things happen. I saw it in the dream, and then I saw it happen. I don't understand it. Of course you think, oh, this gives me great power, but actually no, I never made any money off of it. I didn't get famous for it. Like nothing happened. But what it did tell me was this is a very mysterious realm. Now, if these things start happening, and they turn your idea of what is real around, and you've spent all your time trying to climb a corporate ladder or trying to fit into society, and suddenly these things are happening to you, you could very well have a dark night of the soul. So that's fair warning, because if your reality begins to change faster than you're aware of how it's going to change, fair warning. The reason why I'm saying fair warning is just to tell you it's nothing to be afraid of. Yes, you might have your world turned upside down, but energy never dies. And meditation is not an evil thing. It's actually a really good thing. And if you're seeing things when you begin to meditate, it's because you've seen things before, probably in a past life. But even let's not talk about past lives. Let's just talk about our brain. We don't use all of our brain. Most of the time, we don't use all of our brain. So we're releasing. Sometimes when you're kids, you see so many things, but then you're taught how to not see those things that you're seeing, because your parents will say, no. So for me, it was, if you keep talking like that, you're going to be put in an insane asylum. You'll be put away in a pupule house. And that's because I used to say things a lot when I was a kid. So I had to learn to stuff that, because according to my parents, that wasn't real. I was making things up. And when you have to deny your reality, it can be very disorienting, very disorienting. And you just have to keep making yourself smaller and smaller and smaller to fit. So right now, the change that we're going through, it's because the whole collective is taking a deep breath and an exhale. a deep breath in and exhale, because the collective is ready to take responsibility, each individually, to move forward, to evolve a little bit more, to where we accept these kinds of things and we're not afraid of them and we're not prejudiced against them. We're open to them. So what has been proven scientifically? Okay, they call it the reptilian brain. It is the survival instinct. We're supposed to only use it at certain points, like if the lion is chasing us, we get a lot of energy and then we run, we figure out how to climb a tree or do something to get away from the danger. And I think many of us have heard this story already, but because of the modern day world and all the competition that we have going on and the struggle to fit into a reality that normally we wouldn't fit into, especially if love isn't profitable. So we don't have to think about the health of humanity. We don't, because that's too much money and we can't afford it. So if we have to fit into a world like that, we're constantly having to use our reptilian brain to, brass it out, right? To climb that ladder, to compete. And when you are meditating, they have shown there's less impulses from the amygdala. The other thing is meditation helps preserve the aging brain. So when people who meditate, let's say a person has meditated for 20 years, when they get older, compared to a person who has not been meditating at the same age, their brains are significantly bigger because your brain starts shrinking, right? Dying off. Their brains aren't youthful, but they're pretty good. They're more active. Meditation reduces activity in the brain's monkey brain, we call it, which is the default mode network, or the DMN. That's what science calls it, which is a network that's responsible for the mind wandering. Now, I want to just say right here that minds wander. That's what minds do. So it's not a bad thing that your mind wanders. It's not a bad thing that you eat cake. It's a bad thing when that's all it ever does, just like it's a bad thing if you eat cake too much. So discipline is required. Now, can you discipline the brain? Yes, in fact, they have found that the brain can be disciplined to where there's less activity in the default mode network, or the monkey brain, and there's more focus. And the reason that's significant is because when the brain is wandering, it tends to loop around a lot. It's called neuroses. It loops around in anxiety, like what happened in the past that made you the way you're, and what's going to happen in the future when you feel impotent and nothing's going to work for you. So, you're constantly in anxiety and stress. Where when you can focus and stop your mind from wandering and become more present and recognize your presence, your anxiety starts to drop and you spend less time in that monkey brain. Its effects, they say its effects on depression and anxiety are minimal, like 0.3% on some scale. I don't know what it is. Doesn't sound like much, but that's the same that you get taking antidepressants. So better to meditate than to take an antidepressant. Meditation leads to volume. You can actually grow gray and white matter. They have actually seen that. People who meditate constantly, like monks, for example, in the Himalayas, that their frontal cortex is like 8 times bigger than other people. They have more gray matter. But immediately upon, like within a week of beginning to meditate, your mindfulness begins, your concentration begins within 1 week, and your gray matter begins to grow. So you might want to do that. It reduces anxiety, it reduces your social anxiety, it helps with addictions, breaking addictions, and it helps kids in school. I know in San Francisco, from where we just moved from, well, the Bay Area, they had a program for the kids that were high risk because of um, dysfunctional home situation or whatever. And they started to train them in meditation. And most of there was a documentary about it. It definitely changed their behavior and it made them better students. So in these videos, it's my hope to cover the many varied practices over time, because they all have benefits and many differ in the particular discipline that they mean to establish. For example, some practices improve your focus, uh, some improve a disciplined mind over an aimlessly wandering and anxiety producing mind. Some practices teach how to stay grounded in the present moment, and others teach the importance of observing and honoring the self. Those are just to name a few. But when you begin doing those things, you can also grow your brain, you can calm down, you can find how you fit in the cosmos, you can find your true self, you can become more comfortable with yourself. And maybe you can't change the world, but you can certainly change your response to the world. And it, for me, made me feel less impotent. It's not a panacea, but it is very helpful. And it opens doors to magic, like I said in the first video, which I particularly am interested in. So everyone's experience will be unique because everyone is unique. And whether you are looking to search in the world of how you fit in the larger invisible world, or whether you just want to relax, meditation is for you. Why would I want to do it at this time? I kind of went into it earlier. Um, I feel like I was guided. Um, I feel that it is a really good healing tool. I used it to help heal myself. And right now, I think there's a lot of healing that is being called for in the world. Um, uh, because of COVID, the whole landscape is changing, and the economic ramifications are going to be devastating. Right now, we don't feel it because we're a little bit sequestered in a way that is a little more safe. There's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of change. We see the chaos right now already happening, and in in my way of looking at things, it is in these moments of chaos where great positive change can be introduced, because the system itself doesn't want to change. People get used to a system, they want it to be the same. But when it's obvious that the system isn't working, that's when everyone sort of gets a little off kilter and change can be introduced. Um, like opening up of your mind to the fact that the natural world is bigger and more loving and peaceful than we have previously imagined. Okay, that was a lot of information to digest, so let's recap. Meditation has been proved to reduce stress, anxiety, and blood pressure, to grow and expand the physical brain, to increase neuroplasticity, to considerably slow down the cells dying in the natural aging process, to improve graduation success rates of at-risk high school students, to improve test scores for all students, university, high school students, to improve overall health and well-being, to ground, center, and improve focus by disciplining the monkey brain, to support the healing of cognitive, psychological, and emotional issues. Um, and meditation is integral to the process of individuation or finding your authentic self. And there's more. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Maharishi effect. The Maharishi effect is a series of scientific experiments they did with transcendental meditation. Um, you know, they were strong meditators. They weren't just anybody meditating. It was strong meditators, and they figured out somehow that the square root of 1% of the population would be the correct amount in any place to affect a change. So they got that many in different places in different cities, including Washington, D.C. And what they did was they meditated with the intention to decrease the crime rate. And especially because at the times that they were doing, the crime rate was very high. And what they found was that during those meditations, the maximum decrease in violent crimes in Washington, D.C. was 23.3%. Other cities and other experiments yielded like 11%, 14%, like that, but 23.3% in one of the cities. The statistical probability of chance variations in this experiment was less than 2 in 1 billion. So when they do those statistical chance risks, things like that, that it's usually like saying it's 2 in 1 billion chances that they're wrong. This has been named, like I said, the Maharishi effect, and I've included a link below so that you can read about it, but I do encourage you to do your own research on this topic. That means, the way I read these experiments, that meditators, the act of meditating, heightened awareness and focus of an individual or individuals, and group consciousness through meditation can actually bend reality. So let me say that again, because I think that's really important. Focused intention in a group setting, meditating on decreasing the crime rate, or meditating on unconditional love and peace, can actually bend reality. Think about that for a moment. So, what are we waiting for? At this present moment of great change and chaos, we can be part of a solution without exerting any violence. Just exerting a pure and simple focus on peace and unconditional love in each present moment. We can collectively pave a path to the new way that is birthing itself in this present moment, while also embracing and coming to sincerely appreciate our own unique lives, our own unique energetic tones and signatures. as the universe flows through us. Take a deep breath and exhale.